Spooks. Spooks, many people think, means ghosts and spirits and spooky things, which of course it does. But in this case, I'm talking about the word sometimes used about spies. He's a spook means he's a member of whatever organization, CIA, FBI, whatever, MI5, which is spying on people. And I've thought about spying from time to time. Some of my best friends, I'm told, are spies, and it doesn't seem to have changed them much. But I'm aware of the importance of spying and spookdom, the world of John le Carré and his novels and many other. And I feel a sense of ambivalence towards it. On the positive side, I remember when I was an undergraduate at Oxford and it became revealed that the Cambridge spy ring had been secretly sending high-level information from Britain to Russia. And all of us were indignant and angry and terrified. And I was rather astonished when my thoughtful medieval historian tutor said, actually, it's probably not such a bad thing. And we said, why? And they said, well, it's a back channel. The most likely cause of a Third World War, of breakdown of international order, is fear, anxiety, and ignorance. You don't know what the other side is up to. Your formal relationship is so fragmented. And spies act as a conduit of the secret state of things. And so often, while politicians are ramping up the rhetoric, the spies are saying, actually, their defences are fairly weak, they're not moving their troops up to the front, and so on. And so it was probably a good thing that the Russians knew something about what was happening beneath the surface in the West, and our spies, because of course we have just as many of them, know about what they're doing. So although it's not the most honourable of professions, it is very important in that way. And it's particularly important at the moment because, as many people point out, the formal channels of communication between the major powers, between America and Russia and China in particular, are so weakened that we really hardly talk. And it's thought that, for example, the special telephone which would be used to say, don't worry, we sent that rocket by mistake, don't start a Third World War or whatever. These telephones are pretty ramshackle, and you couldn't, for example, have a three-way telephone conversation between Russia, China and America with the given technology. Now, I don't know if that's true, but I can certainly see, and I know people who work on the back channels who say that the formal channels are extremely weak, and it's absolutely essential that we have parallel ways of communicating between apparently hostile powers. And so spooks are one of those channels. The ambivalence comes with the obvious fact that we don't like spies. I've had the enormous good fortune of growing up in one of the very few countries in world history where spying has been a dishonourable activity, and where the government on the whole has not spied on its own population. Because we're an island, because of other things, England's had this blessed history where internal spying and reporting on people has not been widespread at all. I don't remember any period in my life when I was frightened that there were people in my class, in my university, in my village or whatever, who were there being paid or encouraged to spy on me. Of course, we now have huge mass surveillance. The number of closed-circuit television film facilities in Britain is some people say, the highest in the world per population. We're being watched and monitored the whole time, but we have the confidence that this is not directly for the government. It's going to if necessary, to the police, and most of the time they're not looking at it at all. It's just in cases of crime. So we live without a constituted spying force, but my historical side shows me this is very unusual. If you take two other examples, when I studied the Portuguese Inquisition and the Spanish Inquisition, the Inquisition was based on spying. In its height, in every town in Spain or Portugal or Italy, there would be boxes placed on corners of streets, and if you suspected that one of your neighbours was a Jew or a Protestant or a member of a witches' coven or whatever it was, you wrote their name down anonymously and their address, and you popped it into the box, and lo and behold, the Inquisition would turn up the next day, arrest them, torture them, and so on. So this appalling system where you weren't accountable, but you could defame and destroy people's lives, was widespread across much of Europe. Much of Europe, for most of its history, was authoritarian, dictatorial. There was a battle between the state and its citizens, and the way the state kept its citizens in check, or the church, was through spying on them. So it was a world filled with spies, and we saw its later manifestations during the communist period in Eastern Europe, and no doubt still in many parts of the world. The other place where I came across it recently on a large scale is China. China was traditionally a vast, lightly policed, hardly any police population, and the way in which the government, particularly during the Qing dynasty or imperial family, which is from the middle of the 17th to the early 20th century, so 250 years, the Qing, who were outsiders, they were Manchurians who were in a very small minority trying to rule this huge Han population without a proper army or proper police force. And the way they did this was through systematic spying. Every town had paid informers who would report to the central government. And that system of spying continued in a modified and different form, obviously through into the communist period, when neighbours were encouraged to report on any suspicious activity. And so it's tends to be a feature of authoritarian countries, whereas one of the blessings of being a supposedly open, liberal and secure society, such as our own, is the absence of that. How long that will continue, and particularly with new technologies which allow governments to survey their populations with increasing efficiency from the sky or through their mobile phones or whatever, who knows? Because it is a precious thing. I can lecture in Cambridge or write books or carry on my daily life without the feeling that someone is watching me. So the world portrayed by George Orwell in 1984, where Big Brother watches every move, that world of spying on your own population, of internal spooks, is one which we should cherish, and we should do our utmost to protect this expansion of state spying internally, though, as I've sort of argued, maybe there's some virtue in it externally.